It is Sunday night, it's the 10th of November. We are heading into the Asian Trading Weekly Open, and the weekly candles are about to close. And boy, have we got some good we got some really good ones this week. There are some proper God candles in quite a lot of markets, and we've seen some really decent moves. A really good snapback move in Ethereum, which unfortunately I think still looks like a correction, but we'll go through it. And the most surprising move, of course, has been in ADA, on the news that the Cardano founder Charles Hoskinson is going to be advising the Trump government on crypto policy. He's also right out there in the media at the moment. I think he's on the Diary of a CEO podcast next week. He's also going on Joe Rogan next week. So whilst it kind of doesn't look like it's been enough to change the trade, and doesn't look like it's enough to change the trend in ADA, he's certainly out there, and it certainly could push it higher. And you know, the biggest God candle by far, I think, is Doge, which has been just wild. And let's talk about those. And I think they have more upside and more to come. The problem is, as I said before, Trump is coming, but he doesn't get elected till the 20th of January. He doesn't go into office. So between now and then, we're going to get a lot of announcements about what's to come and what's not, but not necessarily kind of the solid policy. So it could get a little bit choppy, and we need to trade carefully. The trend, though, it's clear in Bitcoin. You know, quite a lot of these smaller coins had really strong moves this morning and have pulled back quite a lot. You know, some of them pulled back 10 or 20%. But Bitcoin is right up there, closing at the highs. It's really strong at the moment, and nothing at the moment. I see a lot of people thinking that everything's too bullish and it's going to roll over. You know, in a bull market, it is spiky, but the trend is the trend, and I do not see any reason to be shorting stuff. Not Bitcoin anyway, you know, maybe some overbought smaller coins. I think it's really important, if you're in the smaller coins and meme coins, to take profit at big levels, or when you see them hit big levels. And so we'll talk about that. So let's start with Bitcoin, the big boy, which is at the moment right up there at the highs. Now, if we look at this on a weekly candle, this is what I mean by there really isn't going to be much tail. If we close here on this weekly candle, it's going to close really strong. And we're holding above 80,000 at the moment. And that means that we had 80,000 as a wobble level, didn't we? But we thought 89, 90,000 was likely the next big fib target. So we're not going to go in a straight line. One thing about a market move like this, when you move higher or lower with a lot of momentum, it's very unusual for a V reversal. So all the people who are feeling a little bit bearish, this is not going to turn around and drop like a rock. The most common, when you have a really strong momentum move like this, the most common next day trade is either to go sideways or to continue higher. So if we enter that sideways trading, it makes it a little bit easier. We can look at the patterns and decide how much more it's going to pull back, let it everything catch up, and we continue higher, and we just do a little bit of back and fill. As we get further into this fifth wave, so if we count from the lows that we made in November 2022, I think this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the further we get into this fifth wave, the kind of less opportunity I think there are for the bigger swing trades without a bigger pullback. So, you know, if you're looking at this and you want to buy, you really do need a decent pullback to not risk getting run over in Bitcoin. There are a lot of catch-up trades out there, so we'll look at them. So short term, whenever I see a move like this as we head into the open, when you see a little kind of hourly double top like this, it just means we've entered a sideways pattern, and then the previous swing lows become support. So if we look at this way, we have potentially entered into a little bit of quiet overnight for Bitcoin here, and we could potentially come back and retest these lows around the 79,000 level, and as long as they hold, we won't see a bigger pullback. But if we do, then quite often the most common is like 50% of the most recent swing or something like that. After the really, really big moves of this weekend, we are likely to see a little bit of a bigger pullback. If we look at this weekly God candle, remember, if we're going to stay in an uptrend, we should not close more than 50% back of the open close of this big weekly candle. And when we stayed in an uptrend, that stayed true. So I would say once we have this close, measure where 50% back. That's probably, I think it's probably going to be around 75,000. We should not close back underneath 75,000 if this swing is going to continue on a weekly basis in Bitcoin. So a big move. Oh dear. There we go. Back again. A big move, but potentially some sideways into the overnight as we head into Asian trading in Bitcoin. So one of the coins that has had a really big move today has been ETH. When I look at ETH here against the dollar, let's take everything off. This is a really encouraging chart, you know, when we look at how we pull back to these monthly moving averages, found support. This all looks very corrective. When I look at the big move lower that we've had from 2021 to the lows that we made in the summer of 2022, this was very clearly a big three-wave move, which is corrective. When you see a big three-wave ABC corrective move like this, the most common retrace on the first swing is a 786, so fib. So from this high to this low, if I put my fib retrace levels on like this, the 786 is where we topped out. And when you reverse to the 786 pattern like this, the most common first target is the 38.2, which we did. Sometimes you go to the 236 fib, and then you usually go back into the middle and decide which way next. So we're kind of doing this textbook fib pattern here in ETH dollar. We have done this pattern, and now short term we're looking into the middle of this swing. So if I move my fibs to this swing, I expect us to decide which way next in between this kind of 61.8, 38.2 golden ratio zone in the middle. And if we go down to the daily, then this is kind of going to be our decision zone. I really do like how we're holding above this 200-day moving average, but we have made a really strong move in a straight line without kind of much of a pullback. When I look at these candles, you know, no pullbacks at all. Once we start seeing some, I think that in this zone we could see some consolidation. If we can hold above this 3,000 level, you know, these fibs work like a bit like a step ladder. So if we can hold above 3,000, we're still going higher. If we drop back underneath 3,000, you could expect a pullback back to this really key 2,835 level, which was such important support and resistance really most of this year. In April and in July that was support, and in August it was resistance, and it's a pretty key level for ETH. But for now, holding above 3,000 keeps us looking higher to 3,300 and then 3,600 next for ETH, and we're still going to buy pullbacks in this one. I would not like sell all my Bitcoin or Solana for ETH. I don't think it's outperforming yet. And if we take a look, for example, at Solana ETH, let's put regular candles on and look at the weekly in this. So this is one of those markets that's trading at new highs. We have a really strong, you know, in a bull market, you get a really strong move and then you get some sideways consolidation or a three-wave correction and you continue higher. And really since the low that we made in June, that's what we've been seeing here on the weekly. We have a strong move, we trade sideways, strong move, we trade sideways, strong move, we trade sideways. There's no reversal to this trend. We could argue that we've probably made a very nice three-wave correction here in Solana ETH, and potentially we could be getting ready after this correction to continue higher again. If I look at this on the weekly, you can see it a little bit more clearly. For me, the range that we're trading in is 0.07 to 0.064 in between. If we drop back underneath 0.064, we're likely to see a bigger pullback back to this swing lower at 0.058. But for now, until this turns into a reversal, which it's not at the moment, Solana is still outperforming ETH, and I still like Solana on the upside. If we take a look at Solana against the dollar, we are trading higher very nicely. And one thing, we said this was very similar to Bitcoin. The correction started at the same time, very similar patterns. The only difference between Solana and Bitcoin is Solana is not trading at new highs, but it is respecting from the high we made in 2021 to the low that we made in 2022. It is respecting these fib levels very well. And for me, a 786 fib is a pretty sharp fib level. It's at 206. So if this weekly candle, which is going to close in an hour, holds above this, I think we continue higher to 231 and we test the highs next. And we can say, you know, we will have broken out of this sideways range. Doesn't mean we won't have a pullback that you can buy, but I'm really watching to see if we can hold above this fib level. For me, that would be a really strong signal that Solana has more upside against the dollar. So I'm watching this on lower time frames. I'll probably look. It's a little bit choppy sideways at the moment. One thing I will say about a market, I've noticed that if you overshoot a level or go beyond it, quite often the pattern that you'll see, the reversal pattern will be kind of like a head and shoulders pattern or something like that. So a lower high here and then we break these lows. You know, we need to watch out that this doesn't turn into one of those head and shoulders patterns, something like this. Then we would just see a bigger pullback. Doesn't mean that this uptrend is over. It just means that we're not quite, you know, we do something like this, then we're not quite ready to break high yet in Solana dollar. So they all look really strong. One that really did have a decent move today that has more upside, I think, is Doge. Let's talk about Doge and this huge candle. This is a weekly chart of Doge. If we put our fib retrace levels all the way back to, let's take that out of the way, all the way back to May of 2021 to the low that we made in the summer of 2022, we can see that when we tried at the beginning of this year to get above this 236 fib level, it was really tough resistance here at 0.217. And this week, this move has completely, following the election, has completely smashed us through this resistance. And for me, you know, the fib 236 fib is like your trend resistance. When you're in a move, if you can't reverse it or get above that, you're still in a downtrend. Holding above this sets us up for much more upside in Doge when we buy pullbacks. In the next, we validated these fibs from this high to low with this reaction at this 236 fib. So the next target level on the upside should be 0.32 and then 0.4 in Doge. And this 236 fib, which was previously resistance, should now become support. We shouldn't close back underneath 0.217. Are we likely to come all the way back there today? You know, you can see that this was where we've done this whole move today. I don't think we even come back and test it. I think that we could see maybe a shallow pullback, but we should continue higher in Doge to 0.32 next. And that kind of really fits with what's going on with Elon Musk and Donald Trump and so on. So I would only really be a bit bearish Doge back underneath 0.217 for a bigger correction. I think that holds, and I think the pullback should be shallow. And I don't think that the move necessarily in Doge is done yet. So I'm looking for that one to continue. Okay, let's take a look at some more charts that are quite... Tau is a really interesting one. Now, this is let's take everything off. Let's go to the weekly chart of this one. So this is another market that made a very nice, big, deep three-wave correction to the bottom of this swing low, consolidated sideways all through the summer, broke out of this sideways double top, double bottom range, and here we are pulling back to our moving averages on the weekly, setting up another weekly move higher, I think. And when I look at this weekly candle, this is a really nice trend continuation, kind of bullish reversal again in Tau, which is Bittensor. When I look at it on the daily, this is even happier pattern because it's got this kind of inverted head and continuation, inverted head and shoulders pattern lick here, and I like how we're closing above the daily 50 moving average. The daily 50 moving average is usually pretty strong support and resistance, so if we do close here, we should hold above it, and we should hold above this neckline if we're going to keep going higher from here. Let me take my marks off now. So that's kind of where the trend support is in Tau, and this is where I'm going to be looking to see if it holds overnight to buy to continue higher. The only thing that makes me a little bit nervous, so this is another one where we've done that 786 38 tooth pattern. You go back to the middle when you do that, so 786 down to back to the middle and decide which way next. So here we are in the middle, flat moving averages all bunched up, deciding which way next for Tau. When I look at it from these lows, so if we take this swing that we've just done here, and we actually go from this low, you can see that this was a 50% retrace. So it's doing that coiling up thing, right? So when you bounce from a 50% retrace, your resistance that you need to get above going the other way is the 50%. And we've done that today very nicely, but we need to hold above it if we're going to keep going. Let me tidy up so that I can see it show a bit clearly. This line that I've drawn, this neckline of this head and shoulders pattern, is this 50% level. So I would really like to see us close and hold above that if we're going to keep going higher, because if not, we're going to stay again in this zone in the middle, consolidating, deciding which way next. So I'm going to look for 538 in Tau Bittensor to be support if we're going to keep going higher, and we're going to break this kind of halfway back mean reversing pattern. So yeah, I think this one potentially is just beginning, and I'm looking for more upside in Tau. Sui is another one that I have been trading, which has been pretty good fun. Let's talk about this one, because I think this one has more upside as well based on measured moves. Just like Bitcoin, it's trading at new highs, it's looking really strong. Not much of a tail on the top of this candle, which usually when you start getting longer ones warn of a bit more sideways or a bigger correction. We are closing pretty close to these weekly highs, so that kind of takes that risk away. When I put on measured projections in this one, and I measure, I think we're in a fifth wave, so this is a lot like Bitcoin and Solana and a lot of the others. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is all the way back to the August of fifth low, and if we measure these, I think we have more upside in Sui, and the target's 3.3 to 3.4 in this zone, and we're not there yet. So I think a pullback in this one should see more upside for this one. And we are on the daily getting a little bit more of a tail, not like I've seen in some of the altcoins. And if we keep going, this is our target zone where we could potentially see a little bit more of a pullback. If I look at this on the hourly, like a lot of markets, we're starting to get a little bit sideways choppy. When we break out from this consolidation, I think that that's where we're headed, 3.3 to 3.4, then in Sui. More to come. INJ is another one that I keep seeing and talked about. I have not, let me find it. I have not been trading this one so much. Where has it gone? Here we go. The reason I have not been jumping into this one is when I look at the weekly, I do like the idea of this making a bottom here in INJ. The problem is we've got this resistance zone around 25, and it comes all the way back from the highs in May 2021, and these weekly moving averages the wrong way around. I would really like to see it push above this resistance and push above this weekly 50 moving average, and then I would think that we are starting another big move. In terms of big picture, when I look at this, it's clearly a lovely 5 waves up from the lows in 2022, and it looks like a lovely 3 waves back. I'm just not 100% convinced that the bottom is in yet, or that we have quite got out of trouble here. If I go down to the daily, I'm always a little bit concerned at a market, making a little 3 wave equal measured move. And so if we say this is 1, 2, 3 up, 1, 2, 3 back, clearly this doesn't look finished, but I'm just a little bit nervous with all of this resistance. Now, if we can push through that resistance, I'm going to be all over this, to be honest. I think that it looks really good. So I'd really like to see this overcome this 25 level and this weekly 50 moving average at 27. And then I think, you know, if we can get above that weekly 50, you can see before we see really nice moves when that happens. And it's strong support and resistance. So I like INJ. It's just not quite over the hump yet. Above 27, I think it'll fly. And that's what I'm looking for. Another way to tell, remember, put fib retrace levels from this high to low. I think this looks good because we're holding above this 236 fib. That's at 22. So if you were looking for a pullback to buy this to have a go, 22 should be good support. You know, really, if we are going to keep going higher, we shouldn't drop back underneath this fib level at 22.83 in INJ. Looking good. Floki is another one. Let's take a look at where Floki. What have I hidden him? So many charts at the moment I've got my eyes on. Here we go. Floki. Now, if we look at this one on the weekly, this is a little bit different to INJ, isn't it? Because unlike INJ that has those moving averages as a resistance, we have found support from those moving averages really nicely in Floki, and I think it's looking quite tempting. But this is another one where we're not quite out of this kind of sideways range. I don't like this tail. If we, you know, I don't want this to turn into kind of an ABC swing failure pattern. We're still, you know, I'd like to see it close above this high. It would give me a little bit more confidence. And if we look at it on the daily, we can see what I mean a little bit more clearly. Just like Floki, just like the other one, if we put our measured move on this one, unfortunately nearly there, but I'm going to say that I'd like this daily moving average now to be support at 16,480. That's where it needs to pull back to, and that's where the daily 200 moving average is. And if it does that, then I think we're all set for a fifth wave higher and to take out that kind of choppy sideways resistance. But this, I think, Floki looking a little bit better than ING at the moment. Let's take a look at Shiba Inu as well. All of these are having pretty nice moves. Let's tidy up this chart here, because this is another one. Pull back to the weekly moving averages, inverted head and shoulders pattern, broken out from the neckline. There's nothing not to like about this, really. So a little bit of a tail forming on our weekly candle here, but we really shouldn't come back underneath this neckline. We shouldn't really come back close more than halfway back of the open close of this move higher in SHIB, and we should see more upside. If we look at it in terms of fib levels, high to low, I could argue that this 50% level, which is where we paused, means that I would like to see this 38.2 hold as support, which is at 24.11, because if it doesn't, we're going to see 50% back the other way, which means we might come back and test this neckline, because we're going to do that 50% thing. But because of the pattern and the way this is shaping up and this really impulsive move and this lovely correction, I think these pullbacks will be buying opportunities. So that's what I would be looking for. 50% retrace if we come back much lower in SHIB, but this one is also set to go higher. Okay, let's take a look at a couple more that I've been trading. So one of them, you know, this is how these fib levels work. This was this PSPS Boba Cat that gives money to charity that I did with them last week. And we said if we got above this 23.6 fib, so this, I've drawn my fib retrace levels from this high in April to the low that we made in August. We said if we got above this 236 fib, the next upside target would be the 38.2 at 0.04, and then 0.052 would be this 50% level next, and we'll climb it like a ladder because we validated these fib levels with this reaction. You know, we've been stuck underneath it since September. That means that now that we've reversed at this level, this 0.028 should be support if we're going to keep going higher in this one. And so these pullbacks, you know, should be pretty nice opportunities. So still doing that one. There's another one that I have been, let's find it. Not Tau. There are a few of these coins that are setting up, I think, you know, with these really nice pullback patterns like Tau. I think another one is Anyone. Let me see, here it is. But so if we go to the weekly of Anyone, so whenever I look at a bottoming pattern like this and you see a higher low, especially if it looks like it's making a three-wave correction, I'm usually looking for another swing related to this first swing. And I'm looking for Fibonacci trace levels to confirm it. So I'd like to see a really nice bottom. So if this is our first swing, this is our pullback, I'd like to see another big swing to the highs of this range in this one. And that would mean measuring from this low, sorry, wrong tool, measuring from this low to this high, back to here. So here's our first target, 1.25, 1.5, and then potentially 2.1 to the 1.618 up here. What's got my attention in this one is I thought, oh, our moving averages here on the daily are the wrong way round, but it looks like it's pushing higher. So when I'm not sure, put my fib levels on, we go level to level to level. And we have reversed again in this one at the 50% retrace. So in Anyone, first off, I like these fib levels because we validated this 236 fib. We reversed at the 38.2. Now we've reversed at the 50%. So if we're not going to do a 50% pullback here, a big one, we need to hold this 38.2 fib level and halfway back of today's move, which is at 0.999, so basically needs to hold above that one level and then bottom in, and we keep climbing the ladder higher in this one. And the first target, again, measure from here to here. I think we head up towards 1.5 and we retest those highs at 1.58 next. So yeah, just seeing, this is a bit of a tricky sideways zone previously when we got here around this round number one. Quite often those round number ones, you know, can be really strong support and resistance. If we zoom out here, you can see previously when we pulled back to this number, it was support, and it's been support, then resistance. So I'd really like to see if we can hold above it to keep pushing higher in this Anyone protocol, which I have been trading. Okay, I've got a couple of requests, and we've got some old school people. You know, there are quite a lot of people out there wondering what to do with their bags of ADA. I would say if you've had a bag of ADA forever, or a bag of some of these coins that have been around for a long time and they spike, that's your time, that's your sign to get out and rotate into something newer that's moving. So sell into the spikes. It'll be good for you. Okay, so first one we're going to look at request is CRO. Here we are with one of these coins with a spike. Now, if we zoom out in this one, we have to say that hats off if you're still holding a bag of this. But we have actually, for a couple of years, been building a base in this. Let's go from these highs to lows here. Because this is, let me make sure I've got it level. This is kind of where our resistance is. So on any move, you know, this is going to be like your first target. This, or potentially a little bit higher at this previous high, 0.18, and make a measured move from this high to low. Where's that? 618. 0.15 then is your first target. We might see a little bit of a pullback here if we keep going. The next upside target would be an equal measured move from this June 2023 low at 0.2. I am not sure that, unless they're doing something, I would sell into these spikes, or I would sell into the top of this range. It probably will get to it could well get to 0.2. It should absolutely get to 0.15. I would consider at least taking partial profits there. Now, hold the rest because yes, potentially this is a big bottoming pattern and we could see more upside. 0.2 first and then 0.28, and then we can start talking about, you know, big fib retrace levels. The first 236 fib from this high to low. This also puts us back up, doesn't it, around the 0.27, 0.28 level, if I've drawn it right. But for sure, take some partial profits on this 0.15 because we could potentially fail here, and then ride the rest as a freebie and see how far we can get it. Okay, BSV is another one. What a cool move this one is making, following on from Bitcoin. Now, when I look at where the weekly moving averages are, I look at this and I go, uh-oh, we could have a little bit of a wobble problem here because we've got this newly minted weekly 50 moving average. When I look at the daily though, this looks really good the way we are breaking out. And because we got, again, this is another chart where we've had a really strong reaction at this 236 fib. So I'm going to say that this one has more in it and it should get to 0.67, which if I measure from the high that we made in March to the low that we made in the summer, is the next fib and a really important support and resistance level. So if we can push through that weekly 50 moving average, that might cause us a little bit of a knockback here. I think by pullbacks we should continue higher to 68 next, and these highs and lows, and then we'll see where we go from there. If we push through 68, then 79 next. I am wrong about to be bullish if we fall back underneath 54. This should now become support. We knocked on it so many times. So as long as we hold above 54, 68 next, and then 79 for BSV should keep going. Okay, I hope that was useful. Let me know if there's anything you're looking at. I'm going to do a meme. I'm going to do a meme coin update tomorrow.